Hi hi, a freezing welcome to the most difficult snow rally in the game.
Norway.
Let's start with an interesting side note. All rallies in Dirt Rally 3 are based on real life WRC events. Not always the exact same roads, not always from the correct year, but always sourced from a real life rally event that was on the WRC calendar at some point in the past. Or at least was a real rally location, like with the Central European Rally. There is only one exception, and it is here in southern Norway. The stages depicted here have never even been a rally, not even a national or local one, but they are based on a real life location. Someone made a great overview map for those interested. I'll put a link in the description. The stages of Norway are around the Lake Fyresvatn in southern Telemark. But honestly, I wish this was a real life rally location, as it really feels awesome if you get it right. The scenery is beautiful and the driving has a nice blend of all kinds of snow driving challenges. So, as the only purely fictional, invented but never rallied location in the game, there was an obvious choice of car here. The one invented but never rallied, following the WRC rules but never proven itself. The 2017 WRC Polo. Also a nice car that sounded and looked very promising. Even though I fully understand the reasons the VW company deserved all the headaches they got. After spending millions to betray the law with Dieselgate, yeah, their WRC program was sad but deserved collateral. Anyway, let's drive this what-if WRC car on this what-if WRC rally and find out how to be fast here. The recommended stage here is Dagtroltjøen. It might not be the shortest, but it has the best and most focused mix of Norway's challenges. First, it starts with a balanced mix of fast and slow corners, where you can establish general vehicle control. Then it leads into a very technical tight downhill section, demanding precise movements with little room for error. And finally, it goes along the lake in a high-speed section with some huge jumps, high-speed braking and snowbank corners. It is basically a mini version of all the challenges that the whole 30 kilometers of Norway would throw at you. Now let's look at the setup and what to focus on. For credibility of claims, here's my placement on the global leaderboard with this setup. The alignment and diffs are left on default, no need for changes. Under brakes, I moved the balance just a smidge further forward. This helps with vehicle control under downhill braking, as seen in the Mexico guide. And it helps in Norway tremendously for the tight technical sections. Next, for the gears. They are overall slightly longer to allow speed for the long straights, but not as much as in Sweden, for example. The straights here are more narrow and more bumpy, so keeping control gets increasingly difficult anyway. Therefore, one only needs to make the gears as fast as one can control the car. Looking into suspensions, I stiffened the springs and balanced the anti-roll bars. Norway has a smooth snow surface. You just need some ride height for the jumps and cutting into snowbanks, so the default height works well already. To allow for large jumps, the springs need to take more energy. See the Finland guide for deeper explanation. And the anti-roll bars focus the car into a neutral behavior for over versus understeer. This is crucial to keep the most control in the technical areas. Finally, for the dampers, it will look familiar for most stiff spring setups. Very soft bypass that activates under high compressions. and otherwise a slightly soft bump and a neutral rebound. This felt best from experimenting here. It gave the springs the most useful movement to do their work. That setup made the VW Polo extremely controllable, which is very useful for such a wide body car on such narrow roads. Which leads us to the driving challenges. Precision. Precision with the car's position. That is the most crucial thing here. You need to slide many corners, so it is not meant just as precision with pointing the steering wheel, but rather being precise with the whole vehicle. Where does the front bumper end? Where the rear? Will I touch that rock barrier or house, or will it just about fit? After finding the most comfortable setup, the precision is what you need to train to get better in Norway. Think of it like Mexico. In many parts it is driven faster, but also keep in mind the snow is lower grip than Mexico's sand and gravel. The level of concentration needed is very similar. I personally find some cars to be easier to control than others purely by the driving position. This doesn't apply to you if you do not use cockpit view. But if you do, and you struggle really bad with your favorite car, then try out some other cars in the same category and adjust the seat front and up to see a bit of your bonnet. Just this, let's say, sense of being makes a great difference in car control. A bad example for this would be the Citroën C4 WRC. Horrible, absolutely horrendous cockpit view in my opinion. Very bad sense of where the vehicle starts and ends. Compare that to, in the same class, the Mitsubishi Evo 6. Extremely nice feeling of where the car is, where it ends and where it begins. If you found a car that you personally can feel good and dialed in a setup that feels controllable, the rest is practice. And damage mitigation, not driving at the absolute limit, to have at least a bit of room to spare. Then practice again. And more practice. You get the idea. Use all of the road and nothing more. In the tight technical areas, you will often fill the whole width, bumper almost scratching rocks, while exhaust blowing against guardrail. On the high-speed sections, you need to keep a good line to stay in the narrow window of flow. Not too far left or too far right. And not too fast either. If the bumps make it feel sketchy, or if a jump just seems scary to take, slow down. Just risking it here in Norway leads more often to a crash than anywhere else. Where in Estonia, Sweden, Finland or Kenya, you often get away with slightly going off, recatching the car and continuing. This rarely works here. To all of these things, there are some exceptions. The grip on pure ice is actually very high with the studded tires. And some open village areas allow huge cuts across roadside snow. But they are the absolute exception. Only focus on finding those once you can drive the rest of the stages. Otherwise, you are searching for seconds that you couldn't even extract yet. If you get all of it right though, the reward is amazing. I would say this is Mexico mixed with Corsica and snow. In terms of the concentration and precision needed. And in terms of how absolutely brutal it feels to drive the longest stages. But despite this, it has become my favorite rally in the whole collection. Why? Because it feels like you are a freaking wizard whenever you get a stage right. After Mexico's long stages, I just feel exhausted and done. Whenever finishing a stage in Norway, I also still feel exhausted, but like I just won a poker bluff while balancing a raw egg on a raw spaghetti. My suspicion is that here we find the densest combination of the factors fueling this feeling. High speed, high needed precision, fast and long jumps, tight drifts, a very loose surface, many tall things beside the road for a sense of speed, a great scenery with the lakes and mountains, a very narrow road, and a great sense of journey as the feel of the stage constantly changes around you. It doesn't come up in the WRC calendar, so if you haven't driven it yet, seriously give it a try. Until you finish a stage unscathed and see how it feels. Despite all flaws and butchered features of this game, this is one of the things that actually draws me back in constantly. So, besides that praise rant at the end, I hope the tips for setup and driving will help you tackle this Scandinavian mountain rally in faster and more consistent times. This concludes all the most challenging locations. Up next, I will cover whichever locations I feel most like doing, so be open for the surprises. Also, feel free to comment if one of the uncovered rallies gives you extreme struggles. I will draw inspiration of what to pick from the comments. See you around. Tranquil madness.